know I really don't need to talk too much about what this gentleman here has accomplished. Probably one of the most accomplished musicians in the history of our instrument, the euphonium. And now he's focusing on teaching and starting a new generation of accomplished euphonium players. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Brian Bowman.
If you don't remember anything that I say today, I hope you remember what I sound like, because that is the most important aspect of anything we do musically. We're communicating ideas, emotions, thoughts, feelings through the medium of sound. Now that little Irish tune, what if I had played it like this? Or like this. Or maybe like this. What's the difference between those sounds and this? Same horn, same mouthpiece, same lips, different sounds. The most important thing you can work on as a musician is, what do you sound like? How do you define your tone quality? What is your sound going to be characteristic of? And describing tone quality can be very difficult, right? How do you describe a beautiful sound? What would you say? Right here. Warm. Okay, warm. How do you quantify that? If you had a student say, play warm, does that mean stand in front of the heater? Or go out in the sun? What does warm mean? You see, that's the problem. Most terms we use to define tone quality are undefinable. But there are 7 terms, 7 characteristics that I'd like to share with you today on tone quality that are very easy to define. The first, of course, would be pitch. You know, if you're playing with a very sharp sound, what happens to the tone quality? It becomes very pinched, very otherwise. If I'm playing very sharp or very flat, the tone quality is altered. So pitch is something you can really talk about, and you can put up a tuner and look at it and see and make a definition, make a change of it. So finding pitch is very important. However, you cannot define pitch in a tone quality unless there is a core or center or ability to hone in on what pitch you are really playing, rather than just on. It's sort of like talking. Making a lot of noise, but you can't understand a word I say because there's no center to my pitch. There's no center there. So pitch and center are the first 2 things. You can always talk about this with tone quality. Does your tone quality have a center? Does it have a pitch? Is your pitch correct to find the core and the sweet spot of that sound. First two things. The third thing, shape of the sound. When I was growing up in the middle of the last century, the biggest quality of sound was having pear-shaped tones. Pear-shaped tones, yes. Do we want our sound to be round, or do we want it to be triangular, or square, or rectangular? What shape is the sound going to be? And you can talk about that. And you can have a sound. When you're talking about a square sound, that's not a round sound. It has ba, 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 sort of square sounds, right? Rather than so you can talk about the shape of the sound. The fourth thing is clarity. Have you ever had double buzz? Anyone here ever have a double buzz? A few of you may have. Or had some other garbage or other noise in the sound. So you listen for clarity in the tone quality. Is your tone quality clean and clear? The fifth thing is consistency. Is your A the same quality as your B flat? Is the F the same quality as your E flat? Or do you have woof tones? Or tones that are louder, softer, rounder, or different shape than the tone right next to it? So you can play a consistent register throughout the low and top register. With the sound being absolutely consistent. The last two, that's number 5. Number 6 and 7, have to do with air. You know, we're playing a wind instrument, and so we have to have a feeling of how we're going to use the air. The first would be called air support. Oftentimes, how many of you have had your teacher or band director say, you need to have more air support? Some of you may have had that happen, right? You need more air support. What does that mean? You go out and buy a truss or something, you go out and get a big electric band, put it around your middle. When I was growing up, the idea of air support was demonstrated by pushing, said, push out against your belt. You know, I got so good at that, I tore the leather from one hole to the other. You know, oh yeah, I can do that. And what does that do for your air? Really nothing. Really nothing. You want to think of air support as if you're, to me, it's not pushing, it's lifting. You want to think of supporting the sound by lifting it. How many of you have ever had the experience of going into a door frame, pressing the backs of your hands against the door frame for about a minute and then turning sideways? Some of you have done that. A couple of you have done that. What happens?
Your arms float.
Your arms float up. If you haven't had that happen, after we finish here, go find a door and try it. And because it's a natural phenomenon. You're not trying to pull your arms up, but they're doing by themselves. The same thing with air support. If you get a good enough breath in, oh, the sound is going to be lifted and lifted out rather than pushed out with a lot of muscles. So when you think about air support is very important, but that it be the right kind of support. The second thing has to do with air flow. Does your sound plop out of your bell and sit on the floor in front of you? Or does it keep moving throughout the stratosphere? To me, sound should be like a flashlight beam. You know, when you turn a flashlight outside and point it up at the heavens and turn it off, that light is still going. That light is still going. Your sound should still be going after you finish. Da! Should have a feeling that your sound is moving or constantly moving. So you want to think of those. Those are just 7. There are probably more. But those are things that you as a teacher, you as a student can talk about that are very, very concrete in divining tone quality and will help you get a better sound. There are other characteristics of sound which are not necessarily characteristics of a good sound or a bad sound. There are wonderful sounds that are bright, wonderful sounds that are dark, wonderful sounds that have different characteristics. But these are some I thought that might be helpful to you, because every one of you in this room, if you're going to continue in music, will have a role as a teacher of someone, either through example or direct teaching. So that's an important thing. On a brass instrument, we want to think of brass playing as being perhaps the most natural form of instrumental playing that there is. You know why? Every other instrument has another vibrating source. What do we have? As brass players, we're transposing our vocal cords from here to here. We're creating the sound. The horn is just a shaper and amplifier. We don't have a reed, we don't have a string, we don't have anything that all the other instrumentalists have to deal with, which all we have to deal with is our own reed, which is ourselves. So playing a brass instrument should be as natural and as easy as singing and as speaking. And so it's a matter of developing your skills to do those things. Now, what are the skills we need to do to create music on a brass instrument? What are we talking about here? What creates the sound? Who knows? You know what creates the sound on a brass instrument?
The vibration of your mouth.
Vibration. Okay. And how do the lips vibrate? What do you have? Air. Air and embouchure create vibration. You don't want to divorce either of those. You want to talk about when you're creating your excuse me, your own skills, you're working about vibration. If your vibration isn't working, it has to be perhaps one or the other, or perhaps both of those areas that need attention. And we spend 90% of our time developing our physical skills with air and with developing the embouchure and the vibration and the attendant skills of using articulation and other things that deal with that. And those physical skills create what I call a toolbox, filled with tools, all kinds of tools that you can use to create music. But the better skills, the more tools you have and the better skilled they are, the more flexibility you have in creating that ideal of what we talked about at the beginning, which is communicating with others through the medium of sound. And that's what music is, communicating with others through the medium of sound. So, if there's any questions at any time, make sure you write them down. If we can't get to them right away, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. We don't have a lot of time, and I have a couple of people that are signed up to play for us, and maybe we can talk about different aspects as we hear each of them play. So why don't we begin right away? Let's see, who's first here? Josh. Is Josh here? Josh, Nancy, are you ready to play?
Yeah.
Okay, come right up. You look familiar. Have I seen you before? Okay. This is Josh. Where are you from, Josh?
McKinney boy.
Okay, great. Okay. Want to play a few notes just to get... What year are you in school, Josh?
I'm a junior.
Great. Sure. How much are you going to play? You want to play? Okay. Just keep going at least through the first variation.
Just start beginning.
Yes, that'd be fine. This is the Endearing Young Charms by Mantilla. All right, go ahead and play that a little bit. Just stop to the, you don't have to do the repeat. Okay, very good. Easier as you go along a little bit. What happens when you get up to play in a situation like this? Get nervous. What's the first thing that happens when you get nervous? The air goes away a little bit, doesn't it? But it got a little bit better as you got a little more confidence of playing. You're doing very well. You have a very nice basic sound, but there are two things I'd like to talk about in your playing that we could maybe improve on. One will be your breathing practices, and the other will be your use of articulation, the articulation and tonguing. First of all, let's talk about breathing a little bit. When you take a breath, where is the air going in your body? Do you know? Okay. And where are the lungs located? You do know. You had some anatomy here. Well, let's experiment a little bit. Let's see where the lungs are. You know what the ribs are for, don't you? To protect the lungs, right? And the heart. The most vital parts of your... And so when you take a breath, as I mentioned before, when I was growing up, the thought was we push out the stomach, breathe from the stomach. Has anyone ever heard that? Breathe from the stomach? A few of you have. How much air does the stomach hold? Not much unless you're making embarrassing noises. Now, so we don't want to get into that habit of breathing from the stomach. We want to think of where the air is going in the lungs. Now, I want you to put your hands on your rib cage, right about up here on the ribs. You feel the ribs there? And I want you to take a deep breath once. Try it again. Blow the air. Open your mouth sort of like you're yawning. Now, do you feel much expansion? Not very much. And so the lungs are like balloons. They expand all the way around. They don't expand in one direction. And so you want to expand like a balloon. Let me feel what's happening here. Can I take a deep breath once? I feel a lot of motion in the front, but not much in the back. Put your hands on your own ribs again. Get the thumbs in the back a little bit. Okay. Now take a deep breath. Okay. Blow it out. One more time. Okay. Put your hands on my ribs once if you can stand it. Here. Yeah, squeeze in and get through the flab there. Okay? Okay, now feel what happens when I take a breath. You feel some difference?
Yes.
Okay. What is happening? It's all the way around in. Put your hands on your own ribs again. Wow. Take a deep breath. Now, feel a little bit of difference?
Yes.
Around where the thumbs are. Let's everybody stand up and find our rib cage. Good demonstration. Find your rib cage. You have to find the rib cage. And as you take a breath, open your mouth as if you were yawning in reverse and think of expanding. How many of you have seen a frog breathe? You know? Whomp. We want to fill up just like that frog. Here we go. Ready? On the count of 3. 1, 2, breathe. The shoulders should not raise. Just the ribs expand. The shoulders hold no air. So start with good postures, like there's a string attached to your sternum holding you up. And then just think of expanding like a frog. Here we go. 1, 2. Open your mouth as if you were yawning. Sort of what we call the inward O. Oh. Ready to go. 1, 2, 3. You feel a little bit of difference, don't you? You're too low. You're on your waist. Get up on your ribs. Up, 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 up. Get up there. Yeah, that's where their ribs are. See the difference there? Take a deep breath again. Get up higher. None of this down on the waist. You know, this is not, cheerleading. Let's try it. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. You feel any expansion? You feel it in your thumbs? Okay. Sit down and relax a second. This is just a ploy actually to keep you awake. But you see a difference in that? Okay. Now, when you take a breath, especially when you're nervous, and which is any time you perform, right? You want to prepare for that by, before you start playing, take 2 or 3 big breaths and blow them out before you come there.